Assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. Students, I hope you are well by the grace of Allah. I am also fine. Today we are going to learn WH questions prepared. So students, I hope you have already got some classes on this topic. And you know that questions are two types, yes or no questions, and another one is WH questions. And WH questions, what are the WH questions? You know, why, when, where, which, etc. These are the WH questions. That means the word which starts with the letter W and H are called WH words. So these are the words. By using these words, we can make WH questions. So WH questions are so called because with the exception of the question word how, because how is the exception, and all the question words begin with the letters W and H. They are also called open questions because the number of possible responses is limitless. This means they must be answered with more information than just a simple yes or no. So today we are going to learn WH questions prepared, whose lecture number is 43. Definition of WH words. The words which start with the letter W and H are called WH words. What are WH words? We know that who, whom, whose, what, when, where, which, why, and how. These are the WH words. What is the importance of WH questions? It is important that children or students ask and answer WH questions as they lay the groundwork for children to participate in conversation, gather knowledge, and collect information about themselves and their world. That's why WH questions is very important. How to make question? We know that at the time of making any question, we have to have clear idea about the person, number, and gender. Okay, so first person I will be changed into second person at the time of making any question. By seeing the underlined word, we have to make the questions. If first person plural number we, it is mentioned in the statement that it can be changed into second person or we can keep it constant. That means you can change into it second person you, or you can keep it constant. That means you can keep it we. Then and rest of the person will remain same in the sentences. Function of WH words. If the underlined word indicates person, that time we have to use who, whom, or whose. And the underlined words indicates time, that time we have to use when. If the underlined word indicates place, that time we have to use where. If we get any information from the underlined word, that time we have to use what. Or if the underlined word indicates any things or objects, that time we have to use which. At the time of showing any cause or reason, that time we have to use why. If the underlined word indicates any condition or situation, that time we have to use how. or the underlined word indicates any period of time, that time we have to use how long. And if the underlined word indicates distance, that time we have to use how far. And finally, if the underlined word indicates quantity or number, that time we have to use how much or how many. Question with do. We know that do is used in present indefinite tense. And in present indefinite tense, what structure should we use at the time of making any question? So let's see what will be the structure. So at first you have to write down WH words. How you have to write? By seeing the underlined word, you have to write down the WH words at first. Then you have to add do verb. Then you have to write subject. Then verb 1, that means present form of the verb. And then you have to write the object or extension. And at the end, you have to put question mark. And next page we will see the examples. Examples. Following the structure, at first what we have to use? We have to use WH word first. So here, look at the first example. What, then do verb. What do, then you is the subject, and do, this is the verb 1. So what do you do? And at the end, question mark put. Then where do you live? So at first WH word written, then do verb added, then you have to write subject, and then you have to add verb 1, and at the end you have to put question mark. Last one, why do you go to school? So at first WH question why, then you have to add do verb, then you have to write subject. Here subject is you, and then verb 1 go, and to school is the object, and at the end you have to put question mark. In this way you have to make WH question. Question with does. We know that does is used in present indefinite tense, and the subject is third person singular number. That time we have to use does. So let's see what will be the structure at the time of making any question. So at first you have to write down WH word, then you have to write does, then you have to write subject, then you have to write down verb 1. So you have to remember that at the time of making question, by following the statement, underlined statement, you have to omit s or es from the main verb at the time of making question. And then you have to write object or extension, and finally you have to put question mark at the end of the sentence. So in this way you have to make question. Examples. What does he love? So here at first WH question what written, then does added, then subject he written, and at the end verb 1 write down, and finally you have to put question mark. Then where does Karim live? So WH questions, then does, then subject, and at the end verb 1, finally you have to put question mark. Last examples. Why does she go to school? So WH question why, then does, then subject she, then verb 1, and at the end to school, and finally you have to put question mark. In this way you have to make question by seeing the underlined word. Question with did. We know that did is used in past indefinite tense. Let's see what will be the structure. At first you have to write down W's words by following the underlined word. Then you have to write did. Then you have to write subject. Then verb 1. You remember that at the time of making question by following the first indefinite tense, you have to write down verb 1. You have to change verb 2 into verb 1. That means first form changed into present form. And then object or extension, and at the end you have to put question mark. Examples. What did he speak? At first you have to write W's word, then you have to write did, then subject, then verb 1, and finally you have to put question mark. Then where did you live last year? So at first you have to put W's question, then did, then subject, then verb 2 will be verb 1, and then object or extension, and at the end you have to put question mark. Last one, why did she hurt him? So at first you have to use W's word, then did, then subject, then verb 1, and then object or extension, and at the end you have to put question mark. Question with have. We know that have is used in present perfect tense. And what will be the structure? Let's see. At first you have to write W's words, then you have to write have, then you have to write subject. It may be what? First person or second person, whether it is singular or plural number, or third person plural number. And then you have to put verb 3, that means past participle form of the verb, then object or extension, and finally you have to put question mark at the end of the sentence. Examples. When have you gone there? At first W's question, when, then have, then you have to put subject, here subject is you, then verb 3, gone, and then object there, and at the end you have to put question mark. Next sentence, how have they lived? So at first W's question written, then have, then subject they, and last one verb 3, and finally you have to put question mark. Last example, why have we met him? So here first one is W's question, then have, then you have to write subject, here subject we, then verb 3, met, and then object him, and finally you have to put question mark. Question with has. We also know that has is used in present perfect tense if the subject is third person singular number. Let's see what will be the structure at the time of making W's question. So at first you have to write down W's words, then you have to write has, then you have to write subject, subject will be third person singular number, and then verb will be past participle form, then object or extension, at the end you have to put question mark. In this way, by following the underlined word, you have to make question. Examples. First one, when has Lytton gone there? So at first W's question when, then has, then subject Lytton, then verb 3, then object there, and finally you have to put question mark. Then what has he remembered? So at first W is question, then has, then subject he, finally verb 3, and at the end question mark has been put. Last one, why has she met me? So W is question, why, then has, then subject she, then verb 3 met, then object me, and finally you have to put question mark. In this way you have to make W is question. Question with had. We know that had is used in past perfect tense. Let's see what will be the structure at the time of making W is question. At first you have to write down W is words, then had, then subject, then verb 3, that means past participle form of the verb. Then you have to write object or extension, and finally you have to put question mark at the end of the statements. Let's see some examples, then it will be clear. Examples: how had Lytton gone there? So at first you have to put W is question how, then had, then subject Lytton, then verb 3 gone, then object, and finally you have to put question mark. Second example, what had he lost yesterday? So at first you have to put W is question, then had, then subject he, then verb 3, then object, and finally you have to put question mark. Last example, why had you met her? So at first you have to write W is question. Here W is question is why, then had, then subject you, then verb 3 met, and then subject object her, and finally you have to put question mark. Question with will. We know that will is used in future indefinite tense. The structure will be W is words, then will, then subject, then verb will be present form, then object or extension, and at the end you have to put question mark. Let's see some examples, then we will have clear idea. Examples: why will you go there? At first W is question why, then will, then subject you, then verb 1, then object, and at the end you have to put question mark. Next example, when will he reach? So here at first W is question when, then will, then subject he, and then verb 1 reach, and at the end you have to put question mark. Last example, where will Selim visit tomorrow? So at first W is word where, then will, then subject Selim, then verb 1 visit, then object tomorrow, and at the end you have to put question mark. In this way we have to make W questions by following the underlined word of the given statement. Students, now I will give you homework. Make W questions from the given sentences. You have to see the sentences properly, you have to see the underlined word properly, then you have to make W questions. Okay, and I hope from today's discussion you are clear about W questions, and you have to have clear idea about W questions. W questions requires two things of students. You must learn the correct words to use, and you must learn the word order for two different types of W questions. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching.